Please be seated. Shikoach Hazan. I am tempted to just say Rabbi Dan Horwitz from Miami, but I think it deserves much more than that. Rabbi Horwitz began the well. That's a word, that's a name for initiative from the land of Michigan that was attempting and successfully gaining traction with people in their 20s and 30s. He was extremely talented to not just get people to come, to learn, to practice Judaism, but he was also extremely talented in fundraising for that initiative. Since that, he left that position in good standing. It's still very successful to lead one of the JCCs of Miami. And he's doing that with great success as well. But in the interim, he has visited us a couple of times, has given us of his talent. And we decided with the officers to tap into his talent once again. He began yesterday with wonderful initiatives. Actually, it began Erev Rosh Hashanah with Nigunim, and then continue yesterday with Tot Shabbat services, with Teen Latch and Learn, and also with the family services in the afternoon. Today, he continues doing so. He will have another service, a virtual Tashlich at 4 to 4:30 p.m. in Zoom. And now he's going to offer the sermon on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Nothing can fill the heart of a rabbi than to see one of his students to rise to the top and to be selected among the 50 most influential rabbis of the country. I introduce you for the second day of Rosh Hashanah sermon, Rabbi Dan Horwitz.
Thank you, Rabbi B. And Chag Sameach, everybody. Good morning. I want to note, aside from being my childhood rabbi, Rabbi Bitron has been an incredible influence in my own life and my own rabbinate. And I also want to give a little credit this morning for the words I'm about to give, some of which were inspired by another rabbi of mine, Jeff Summit. So I want to share with you a Hasidic story. It's a story of the Hasidic Rabbi Nachum, the son of the Rebbe of Rishon. And one evening, he left his students in the study hall after a long day of studying Talmud and made his way home. And of course, upon arriving home, he realized that he had forgotten one of his Sfarim, one of his books that he really needed for his study. So he returns to the study hall, and upon entering, he finds his students, who are usually super studious and very focused on their learning. He finds them playing checkers. Now, the students see their rabbi walk in the door, and they're terrified, thinking that he is somehow going to scold them, reprimand them, be upset with them. But he surprises them. He cracks a little smile, and he says, do you know the rules of checkers? And his students sheepishly are like, yeah, of course we know the rules of checkers. We're playing checkers right now. And the rabbi says, you can learn very important things from checkers. The first is that you can only move forward and not backward. And the second, that you can only make one move at a time. You can't make two moves at once. And the third is that once you've reached the last row, you can move wherever you like. Okay? So I'd like to use the three lessons that the rabbi teaches from checkers to talk a little bit about entering the new year. So let's start with the first one. You can only move forwards and not backwards. Now, for many of us, this may not seem true. We're often stuck in the past, reviewing and reliving past mistakes, old hurts, old arguments. We let our minds descend into that hurt. We replay those conversations over and over. Not to mention that as we're living through a pandemic right now, the thing that many of us are thinking daily is, when are things going to be able to go back to normal? But we really have to stop ourselves, and we have to ask, was the past normal really all that great? Were we actively pursuing justice in the world as our tradition demands of us? Were we caring for the widow and the orphan and the stranger appropriately? Were we doing all we could to acknowledge the divine in every human being? Were we loving all children as if they're our children? One of the simple and profound truths of Rosh Hashanah is that a new year has begun, and that while the old year is gone and we can't change the past, we have the power to do something truly transformative in relation to the past. We can evaluate how we acted, decide how we want to act differently the next time, learn from our painful mistakes, take our painful lessons, and use what we've learned moving forward, crafting a new normal far superior to any normal than might have been before. In this high holiday season, especially in the time of COVID, it's about figuring out the lessons that, like checkers, will move us forward. Lesson number 2 from checkers. You can only make one move at a time. We live in an attention economy. Every company is vying for our time and our attention. At least pre-pandemic, we had more choices of things to do than ever before. And frankly, it's one of the reasons that researchers point to the success of Trader Joe's. Sorry, Wegmans. But your average grocery store carries roughly 50,000 products. Trader Joe's carries under 4,000. You want black beans at Trader Joe's? Great, there's the can, you take it. You go to a mainstream grocery store, you have 17 different options of black beans in terms of what is infused into them and how sodium-niche they are and all of those pieces, right? You just grab a can of black beans at Trader Joe's. And decision fatigue, as we know, is a real thing. It's a real thing, and it can be overwhelming to have to make so many choices on a daily basis. So what happens? Many of us shut down, we don't respond, we pass out exhausted, or we're just purely consumed with the choices that we have to make about our own lives. And yet, coming back to rule number 2 of checkers, if we can only make one move at a time, and we're overburdened with choices, how do we know which move to make? According to the Midrash, there was once a Bira Doleket, a palace in flames, and most people passed right by it without even paying it any attention at all. Either they were like, it's not my problem, or they said, I've got other stuff going on, or they didn't even notice it because they were so consumed with their own things. And only one person in this midrash bothers to stop and consider whether anyone might be trapped inside, whether the owner might need help, or whether there was no one else around to put out the flames. And according to the rabbis, Abraham was called to be the first Jewish person because he resembled that unique person from the Midrash. He saw a world on fire with injustice and suffering and was the only one in his time who stopped to ask what he could do to put out the flames. That is what it means to be Jewish, to see the palace on fire and say, even if it's not my palace, it is my problem. So while we can only make one move at a time, we need to remember that the move may not be a move that directly benefits us. It may need to be beyond ourselves. That in all of the overwhelming noise, that this world is bigger than us. We have incredible power, the power to make moves that improve the lives of others as well. And that as a Jewish community, if we can only make one move at a time, we should remember to lift up our eyes to see the world around us and the important role that we must play in healing it for everyone. Let's go on to Rav Nachum's 3rd learning nugget of checkers. When you reach the end of the board, you can move anywhere you want. So for those of you who remember how to play checkers, this means that when your piece reaches the end and becomes a king, your options for movement are much greater. You can move forward, backward, multiple jumps, right? This is how I understand the 3rd insight. Once you've learned some important truths in your life becomes contextualized in a way that exudes comparative gratitude, presenting even more opportunities for meaning and impact. Now, needless to say, this pandemic moment has brought a boatload of important truths and lessons learned into our lives. And many of us are making sacrifices we've never had to make before due to job insecurity or losses. Others are coming to truly appreciate teachers after being home with kiddos for months. I'm one of those people. And seeing just how challenging it is to educate children all day, every day. Still others are seeing the politicization of public health in a way that's deeply unsettling as we question our governmental institutions and their leadership. And others are coming to appreciate the special role that synagogues, JCCs, and other Jewish community institutions play in fostering a network of mutual care and support that before may have been taken for granted. So as we live through this moment in time, and we flow into 5781, we'll have the ability to preserve the best of what was before, to carry it with us forward, and we'll have the ability to leave behind the parts that weren't all that great to begin with. We'll recommit to actions that are healthy for us and our community and for others as well, taking intentional steps towards peace and justice, one decision at a time. And in doing so, we're going to harness the lessons that we've learned, instilling us a sense of gratitude and awareness of future possibilities that otherwise may have remained hidden, and the ability to move freely in new, important directions. Rosh Hashanah isn't about apples and honey or New Year's cards, spoiler alert. It's about deciding to be the person that you most want to be. It's about believing that real change and growth are possible. We can move forward while acknowledging and learning from what was. We can commit to what's important in our lives, and we can continually strive to get to the end of the board, whatever that may be, that special place where what we want to do for the world is revealed and the ability to attain it is in our grasp. May the year ahead be sweet and fulfilling. May we work hard at life and at love, but we also need to always make a little bit of time for checkers. Shana Tova.